The diagnosis came back as acute leukemia. It was a shock, obviously, but my family didn't waste any time. They moved heaven and earth to locate a matching bone marrow donor for me. They succeeded, and we had a schedule set. But then Elena, my girlfriend, went behind my back and gave my spot to the guy she had always considered the one that got away. On the day I was scheduled for surgery, she skipped work and stayed by his bedside, refusing to leave him for even a moment. I was left alone at home, curled up on the bathroom floor in absolute misery, blood staining the tiles, feeling like my heart had already stopped beating. After the doctors told me my time was running out, I calmly pulled out my phone and blocked her number. She had justified it by saying, "He almost died. I just went to keep him company. You aren't like him, Mark. You're strong. He needs me." The problem was, I was dying too. "Mark, what is your problem? Why did you freeze my credit card?" The front door slammed open, the noise reverberating through the dark apartment. Elena stormed in, absolutely furious. Seeing that the apartment was pitch black, she immediately started unbuttoning her blazer while launching into complaints. "It's late, the lights aren't on, and dinner isn't made. What exactly do you do all day?" My face was pale as I looked at this woman I had loved for 5 years. 5 years ago, she had nothing. With significant help from my family, she started a company and found success. To help her focus entirely on her career, I willingly stepped down from my own high-paying job to manage the household and take care of her. And yet, this woman, for whom I had given everything, had stolen my only chance at survival. The thought made me cough uncontrollably, a low rasping sound rattling in my chest. My chest hurt more with every breath, and the coughing grew louder. But she didn't ask if I was okay. She just frowned. "If you're sick, go see a doctor," she said, dismissively. I stared at her and asked, "Why did you give my donor match to someone else without asking me?" She froze, looking a little uncomfortable. You know about that? Look, you aren't in a rush, right? That friend of mine has been sick for years, and it turned out the donor matched him too. I figured since you just got sick, you have plenty of time, so I told them to give it to him. But I didn't have plenty of time. Acute leukemia moves incredibly fast. My family had gone through incredible hardships to secure that match. Elena faked sympathy. "Honey, you aren't blaming me, are you? Your parents and your sister are so powerful. It's just one donor match. If you lose one, you can just find another. Don't be mad at me. I promise I won't do anything like this again. When you're hospitalized, I'll go to the hospital every day to take care of you." As she spoke, she sat next to me and reached out to hold my arm. The air carried the faint scent of cedarwood, her crush's favorite cologne. One second she was with him, and the next she was pretending to be deeply affectionate with me. It was repulsive. "Don't touch me." I slapped her hand away hard. She looked shocked, then immediately impatient. "What are you doing? You're still mad about something so small? Do you know you cut off my card today? I almost couldn't pay the bill. Do you know how embarrassing that was? You're insane!" I didn't care. All I knew was that this selfish woman had stolen my lifeline. I looked at her with zero emotion. "Elena, get out of my house." She shut her mouth instantly, looking at me in disbelief. "What did you say? You're telling me to get out?" I sneered. "This is my house." Elena stood up instantly, looking ready to explode, pointing a finger at my nose. "You mean you want to break up?" "Fine." God, you are so high maintenance, Mark. You kept saying you loved me, but the moment things don't go your way, you kick me out. She grabbed her coat off the sofa. "Mark, don't you dare regret this." She stormed to the door. Seeing I wasn't trying to stop her, she paused and yelled, "Mark, Even if you kneel in front of me next time, I won't take you back." The quiet room was left to just me. My throat itched, my whole body was in agonizing pain, and I started coughing incessantly, feeling like my lungs were about to give out. A moment later, I felt something warm flowing from my nose. I wiped it with my hand. Bright red blood. Since getting sick, I often got sudden nosebleeds. Elena had seen it a few times. At first, she would panic a little and help me wipe it up. Later, she would just watch coldly, telling me how gross I was and asking if I could control it, saying that even though Julian was sicker than me, he never acted like this. In her mind, Julian was pure and flawless. Even his illness was heartbreaking to her. My vision blurred from coughing and my eyes watered, but the resentment in my heart grew. If not for her, I would have already had the surgery and been in recovery. I sat heavily on the sofa. After a long while, I took out my phone and called my sister. I was born into a happy family. My parents had savings, and my sister ran a successful public company. They loved me. They used to genuinely like Elena, too, hoping she would treat me well. But things changed. After I got sick, Mom and Dad devoted themselves to taking care of me. My sister, Sarah, pulled every string she had to find a matching bone marrow donor, eventually begging the son of a big shot in her circle. He demanded a huge sum, but finally agreed to the transplant. But we never expected that the hospital's confirmation call would end up being answered by Elena. By the time we found out, Julian had already finished the surgery, and the donor couldn't donate again for 3 months. Because of this, my dad was hospitalized from the stress. Mom cried all day, and Sarah held my hand, telling me she would find a way to save me. I was so grateful for my family. I really didn't want to leave them, but life is ridiculous. I called Sarah to apologize, hoping she would take good care of our parents and not grieve over a disappointing son like me. Sarah was silent for a long time before saying, "You have always been their pride, and mine too." My voice choked up. "Sarah, help me sell this apartment." "Okay," she replied. The home that held 5 years of memories with Elena was sold without a hitch. In my final days, I didn't return to my family. The disease was painful and torturous, not just for me, but for the loved ones watching me. I chose a coward's way out. Swallowing the pills with hot water, I fell into a deep sleep. Slowly, I felt the pain in my body fade. When I opened my eyes again, I was surprised to find Elena standing right in front of me. Everything was stark white. A hospital. Her gaze was fixed right on me. I stepped back in disgust, but then I was shocked to see her walk right through me. I had become a ghost, invisible and forced to stick by her side. "Julian, why are you out of bed?" She rushed toward Julian, who was behind me. "Why are you so pale? Do you feel sick anywhere?" I turned to look. Julian was wearing a hospital gown, his face pale and lips colorless, which only highlighted his features, giving him a kind of sickly fragility. Elena, shallow as she was clearly enchanted by this look, actually believing he was on the brink of death. Julian gave 2 weak coughs and whispered, "I'm fine. The room was a bit stuffy. I just wanted to walk." "I'll walk with you." Julian nodded, then asked, pretending not to care, "Elena, you haven't gone back in a week. Mark won't be mad, will he?" Elena said dismissively, "It's fine. He's very generous. He hasn't even called me in all this time." Julian looked surprised. "Doesn't that mean he's mad at you? He must be angry that you've been at the hospital taking care of me. It's all my fault." Julian's eyes reddened, and his voice took on a tearful tone. "If only I didn't have no parents and no one to look after me. Even this treatment was paid for by you, Elena. He looked up at her. I'll pay you back as soon as possible. Elena really was a fool for love. Sarah told me Elena's company was having cash flow problems recently, yet she still managed to cough up a huge sum for Julian's surgery. She comforted Julian for a bit, then said she was going back to get a change of clothes and would return. I watched her drive home. Unfortunately for her, she didn't know I had already thrown all her stuff out. Beep, beep, beep. The lock frantically signaled an error code. Elena frowned and complained. Did Mark seriously change the code? Just then, the door was yanked open. A large man appeared in the doorway, frowning at Elena. What do you think you're doing? Elena jumped, then asked angrily, Who are you? Honey? Who keeps trying to open our door? A woman in a red nightgown peeked out. The man immediately blocked her from view, staring warily at Elena. Who the hell are you? Why do you keep punching in our code? I'm telling you, I've already called security. You better behave. Elena stammered in shock. Your home? But this is clearly my home. The man looked at her like she was crazy. Are you sick? I bought this place a week ago. How is it your home? Elena? He sold the house? How is that possible? He said, Ms. Larson. The security guard rushed over from behind and escorted Elena away. She hadn't recovered from the shock, grabbing the guard's hand in disbelief. He sold the apartment? The guard nodded. Yeah, Mr. Hayes said something about going back home to recover from an illness. Suddenly selling the house. Did he catch something serious? Elena's words stalled, her expression wavering. I knew exactly what she was thinking. She was wondering if my illness was actually severe. Elena was escorted out of the complex. I stood behind her, watching as she typed acute leukemia into her phone and started searching. The more she read, the graver her expression became. Finally, her face turned panic-stricken, and her hands started to shake. Seeing this, I actually felt a twinge of pleasure. You think this is bad, Elena? Your suffering has just begun. Elena started frantically calling my phone. As soon as it connected, a computerized voice replied, The number you have dialed is no longer in service. Elena's face went white. She looked at her phone in disbelief, then started calling Sarah and my parents, but the line was always busy. Naturally. After I died, my family must have blocked her long ago. It was 10 at night. After agonizing over it, she was just about to call a taxi to go to my parents' place when Julian called her. The man on the phone sounded weak, gasping for air. Elena, I didn't mean to disturb you, but I suddenly feel so awful. I don't know if it's a rejection reaction. Elena hesitated for a moment, then said, I'm coming to the hospital right now. When she arrived, Elena asked, Should we call a doctor? Julian looked at her apologetically. I just saw the doctor. He said I'm just under too much stress. I'm sorry, Elena. I made you come all this way for nothing. Elena remained silent for a long time. Julian obviously noticed her odd behavior. He asked, Did you fight with Mark again? Should I call and explain things to him? In the past, whenever Julian called or texted, Elena would drop whatever she was doing to rush to his side. I had fought with her about it, screamed about it. Later, my heart grew cold. I would stare at the elaborate dinner on the table and watch coldly as she left without hesitation. Maybe that was when my love for her slowly disappeared. Elena asked, Julian, since you have this illness, you must know a lot about it, right? Julian froze, then nodded uncomfortably. Of course. He felt uncomfortable. Previously, Elena had spared his feelings and never brought up his illness voluntarily. Now she was asking. Elena asked, "Is acute leukemia dangerous?" Julian looked surprised. "Is that what Mark has? Acute leukemia? Didn't you say it was just normal leukemia, and they caught it early?" Her breath hitched. She had never cared enough to know the details. Julian added, "The hematology department at this hospital is famous. If Mark is sick, there's a high probability he's here too. Maybe if you look around, you can find him." Julian just said it casually, but he didn't expect Elena to take it seriously. She nodded. "You're right. I'll go ask. I can definitely find him. Mark." I watched as Elena completely ignored Julian, leaving the room in a daze and heading straight for the doctor's office. She stared intensely at the doctor. "Please, he really is my boyfriend. I just want to know which ward he's in." The doctor gave her a strange look, pushed up his glasses and said, "That's against protocol." Bang. Elena slammed her hand on the desk, her eyes red, breathing rapidly. "I just want to know if he's okay. I'm really worried about him. He's my boyfriend. Why don't I have the right to know?" The doctor flipped through a file, then asked, expressionless, "Since he is your boyfriend, why do you not know his condition?" Elena was speechless. The doctor continued, "He was admitted on the same day as Mr. Julian, whom you are caring for. But in these 3 months, there is no record of you visiting Mr. Hayes. Doctor, Mr. Hayes' condition was critical. Acute leukemia progresses extremely fast. His life was in danger at any moment. His family found a matching bone marrow donor for him, but in the end, he didn't undergo the surgery." Elena's face instantly turned ash gray. Clearly, she realized why I hadn't had the surgery. Because she had given my only chance at survival to her high school crush. Is he in danger? Can't he wait a bit longer? His family is rich. They can definitely... I don't know. After the matching marrow was gone, he chose to discharge himself, the doctor said. He was my patient, and I desperately hoped he would live, but you were the one who took that confirmation call, weren't you? Shouldn't you know better than me how Mr. Hayes is doing right now? Elena walked out of the office in a trance. Julian went to greet her, but she shoved him aside. I watched her stumble to the top floor and dial Sarah's number. This time the call actually went through. "Sarah." Her voice trembled, asking almost pleadingly, "Is Mark okay? He's fine, right?" There was silence on the other end. The next second, beep, 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 the busy signal. She hung up. Elena's expression froze. Her eyes reddened, and she gritted her teeth. She paced back and forth anxiously, taking out her phone to dial number after number. Most didn't answer. A few did, but hung up immediately upon hearing her question. Finally, she switched to her chat with me. The last conversation was from a month ago. I had asked if she was coming back for dinner. She hadn't replied. After I died, my family must have collected my phone. "Mark, playing hide and seek, huh? If you have the guts, don't reply to me for the rest of your life." There was no response for a long time. Elena's originally exquisite suit was now full of wrinkles, her makeup smeared. She was panting heavily like a trapped animal. Seeing her so pathetic, my heart, originally full of resentment, slowly grew calm. This kind of woman isn't worth my hate. Forced to follow her, I watched her curl up in a corner of the hospital and sleep through the night. The next day, she went straight to my sister's company. "I want to see Sarah Hayes." Elena stood at the front desk. The receptionist looked up at the disheveled Elena and said, "Ma'am, do you have an appointment?" Elena pointed at herself in disbelief. "Appointment? Are you asking me? Don't you know who I am? I am..." "Ma'am, Strangers who want to see the CEO need an appointment. Elena choked. Before, whenever she came to Sarah's company, she went right up. No matter how busy Sarah was, she would invite her up to rest. She had never been shut out like this. Elena sneered. "I'm here to talk to her about Mark. Are you sure you want to stop me?" The receptionist's face went cold. "Please make an appointment first." "Fine. If you won't let me see her, I'll sit right here and not leave." With that, she planted herself on the guest sofa in the lobby. I stared at her from a distance, and for a moment I actually found it hilarious. She used to say that I sometimes acted like a drama queen, always making a scene. But isn't she acting more like a drama queen right now? The receptionist clearly wasn't going to indulge her. She turned her head and whispered into her headset. Within 30 seconds, a group of burly security guards appeared and hauled Elena up. "What are you doing? I'm Mark's girlfriend." "Receptionist, please escort her out." Elena began to struggle violently, but since college, she had spent her days either drinking and socializing or lying around at home. How could she match these muscle-bound men? I watched her get dragged out, even losing a high heel in the struggle. She kept screaming that she was Mark's girlfriend, the future daughter-in-law of the Hayes family, asking how they dared treat her like this. But everyone just looked at her with indifference. Elena finally realized something was wrong. She slumped on the ground, looking up at the receptionist, and asked, "Is Mark really dumping me?" How laughable. I didn't know if she was playing dumb or actually stupid. Even now, she didn't believe something had happened to me. The receptionist looked disgusted and was about to speak but saw Elena staring straight behind her. I followed her gaze and felt a jolt in my soul. It was Sarah, whom I hadn't even seen one last time. She was wearing a well-tailored black women's suit, looking a bit haggard, coldly, watching the farce in the lobby. I couldn't help but take a step forward. "Sarah." I felt wronged and sad, but being a ghost, I couldn't even cry. Elena struggled and ran to my sister, asking urgently, "Is Mark okay? I heard his illness is dangerous." Sarah said, "You knew his illness was dangerous, yet you still gave his spot to someone else behind our backs." Elena froze. I didn't know back then, and Mark looked fine at the time. Julian, Where did he look fine? Sarah's eyes were full of hate. Every time he had chemotherapy, his hair fell out in clumps. Every night when the illness flared up, his bones hurt so much he couldn't sleep. And you? You were out partying until midnight, coming back and expecting him to drag his sick body around to take care of you. Vanessa? But he never told me any of that. Did you give him a chance to— Elena, ever since Julian contacted you, your whole heart has been on him. For that man, you risked bankrupting your company, to put him in the best hospital, and you even stole my brother's only chance at life. Elena immediately retorted, "No, I love Mark. I saved Julian just because I couldn't bear it. He's a human life, too. Was I supposed to just stand by and watch? Sarah sneered. Did he tell you that he owns 3 houses in Boston and has millions in savings? Elena's voice cut off abruptly. She looked at my sister in disbelief. Sarah looked at her with disgust. I'm actually quite looking forward to seeing how far that man will go for you. You wanted to see Mark? Let's go. With that, Sarah walked out the door first. Elena hesitated for a second, then immediately followed. I didn't know how long I could exist in this world. Seeing Sarah now, I had mixed feelings. I followed her closely, just wanting to be with her a little longer. Along the way, my gaze stayed on Sarah. She looked out the car window expressionlessly, her eyes hiding emotions I couldn't read. She looked exhausted, and I felt guilty. I was released from pain, but all the pressure fell on her. She had suddenly lost her brother and had to take care of our aging parents. I gently placed my hand on her arm, remembering when we were small. Our parents were busy, so Sarah took care of me. She would complain, but every time I refused to walk, she would silently carry me on her back. Later, when I said I liked Elena, even though she looked down on her, she always helped her out. If not for Sarah, Elena's company would have collapsed long ago. I cursed Elena in my heart. An ungrateful wolf. I was truly blind back then. The car came to a smooth stop. Elena froze. When she opened the door to get out, she stumbled and almost fell. I realized then that Sarah had brought Elena to a cemetery. Legs weak. Sarah casually pointed to 2 bodyguards. Drag her. Since she wanted to come, let her bow down properly to Mark. The evergreen trees in the cemetery stood tall. Sarah walked up step by step, finally stopping in front of a new grave. The stone slab looked freshly sealed. There was no headstone, just a pile of fresh flowers. She turned back against the light to look at Elena. Didn't you want to see him? The blood drained from Elena's face. She took a heavy step forward, then tripped over her own feet, kneeling awkwardly on the ground. She knocked over the flowers in front of the grave, hurriedly trying to fix them, then slowly looked up at Sarah. I noticed her eyes were bloodshot. You're lying to me, right? How could Mark be dead? It's only been a week, just 1 week. He was killed by you, Sarah said coldly. Elena trembled all over, staring at her in disbelief. Elena, you're lying. How is that possible? How could I have killed him? I only… Sarah raised her hand and traced a vague arc in the air. She asked softly, why is it impossible? When this disease flares up, it's excruciating. I checked the surveillance cameras at home. He rolled on the floor in pain, unable to scream because no one was home. He tried to grab his phone, but his hands shook so much from the pain he couldn't even dial. He also got sudden nosebleeds frequently. Did you ever see that? Elena went stiff, her lips trembling, unable to say a word. But Sarah wasn't ready to let her off. Instead, she continued. The blood would fall on the floor, and he would kneel there alone, lonely, slowly wiping it clean. I felt a bit awkward. If I had a physical body, I would have cringed enough to dig a 3-bedroom apartment out of the ground. Although the disease came on fast, because I found release early, the days of true suffering weren't as numerous as she described. Sarah was deliberately exaggerating my pain simply to torture Elena. My gaze fell on Elena. Her goal was certainly achieved. Elena knelt on the ground, soul crushed, huge tears falling. She shook as she cried, going from quiet sobbing to loud wailing. She kept repeating, I'm sorry. I didn't know. I really didn't know. Her voice went hoarse. In the end, she started bowing repeatedly to my grave, harder and harder. I couldn't help but frown. Her suffering made me happy, sure, but if possible, I didn't want this dirty woman soiling my road to reincarnation. Clearly, Sarah had the same thought. She waved her hand, and the bodyguards hauled Elena up. Sarah said, My brother called me before he died. Elena's gaze slowly fell on Sarah. Sarah lifted her chin slightly and said, word for word, He said he hopes Elena never bothers him again. He hopes to never cross paths with you again. Elena trembled, staring blankly at the grave. After a long while, she slowly stood up. Yes. It would have been better if he had never met me. After saying that, she turned and slowly left the cemetery. I looked at her back with some confusion. Elena seemed off, as if she had lost her soul. I reluctantly looked back at Sarah, who was still standing by the grave, then regretfully followed Elena. She actually went back to the hospital where Julian was. I felt annoyed, wondering when I could finally be rid of this terrible woman. I thought she would go back to being affectionate with Julian, but surprisingly, she entered the room with a cold face. Julian was startled by her disheveled appearance, then slowly calmed down and said softly, "Oh my, Elena, what happened to you? Why do you look like this? Did you fight with Mark? Ha! I'm dead and still being used as conversation fodder. Scumbag and tramp." Usually, if Julian coaxed her like this, Elena would be all smiles. But this time, Elena grabbed his hand and stared at him intensely. She said, "Julian, I have a favor to ask." Julian froze, then immediately said, "What's this about favors?" "Elena, you've helped me so much. If you're in trouble, I'll definitely help you." Elena said, "My company is having some issues. Can you lend me some money?" Julian asked, "How much do you need?" Elena said, 500 grand. 500 to see. Grand? Julian exclaimed. Where would I get that kind of money? Realizing his reaction was too extreme, he quickly added, "I'm sorry, Elena. I spent almost all my savings treating my illness. I have $5,000 on hand. I'll give it all to you." He held Elena's hands with both of his. "When I get better and earn money, I'll give you more." Elena stared at him. "Really? Your properties and savings in Boston don't add up to 500 grand? Julian looked at Elena in astonishment. Then his eyes darted around. "Elena, did someone say something to you? I don't own any property in Boston. Those belong to my friend. They're just in my name. I can't touch my friend's stuff." That excuse was so bad that not only did Elena not believe it, even I laughed. "Who is crazy enough to put houses in your name? Stupid woman, look at this man you gave your heart and soul to." Seeing her being played like a fiddle, I genuinely laughed out loud. Elena smiled bitterly. "You know what? When I first started my business, Mark gave me $500,000 as startup capital. His family was strict with him. He saved that money secretly. Back then, no one believed in my industry, but he gave me the money without hesitation, completely unafraid that I'd lose it all. I was so stupid back then. I even picked a fight with him, feeling like he was using money to pressure me. I told him, 'So you have some stinkin' money, what's the big deal? I'll be richer than you someday.' But now I realize there are things money can't buy. For you, I risked bankrupting my company to pay for your treatment. And you..." Hearing this, Julian's expression turned ugly. He craned his neck and said, "Did I beg you to give me the money? Are you sick? You really think you sacrificed so much? You're just moving yourself with your own drama. Everything was voluntary on your part, including the bone marrow donor. You gave that to me voluntarily, too. What, Mark is fighting with you about it, so you're taking it out on me? Let me tell you, Elena, plenty of people are willing to do things for me. If you don't want to be here, then get out now." When he said donor, Elena's face went completely white. She stared at Julian with dark eyes, a hint of madness appearing on her face. Elena muttered to herself, "Yes, you stole his chance to live. If not for you, he might have already finished the surgery and been in recovery. I would be with him every day, taking care of him. If it weren't for you, Elena's voice suddenly shrieked. The next second she charged forward, strangling Julian and pinning him to the bed. Julian struggled violently, his nails scratching Elena. But Elena didn't let go. The hospital bed shook violently, knocking bottles and jars off the side table. The sound of breaking glass quickly attracted a nurse. The nurse screamed and rushed in to pull Elena off, followed by security and doctors rushing in to help separate them. "Cough, cough, cough. Elena, you psycho! She's crazy! She wants to kill me! Arrest her!" Julian screamed. Elena struggled frantically. "Let me go! It's all his fault! He killed my boyfriend." "Bullshit! You killed him yourself, Elena. It was you! You killed the man who loved you most!" Elena's expression instantly went gray. She froze, letting them pin her to the floor. I stood at the door, watching it all coldly, thinking, "Yeah, wasn't it you, you selfish, stupid woman who killed me?" This pair of scumbags turned on each other so quickly. I found it incredibly funny. Just then, thud. Elena was shoved by Julian. Her head hit the floor hard, and she passed out. The next second, a white light flashed, and I lost consciousness too. Before I blacked out, I felt a bit of regret. This time I was probably really moving on, but I hadn't even had the chance to see all my family one last time. When I woke up again, my eyes were met with the same white ceiling. I had woken up in a hospital again. Luckily, having experience as a ghost, I wasn't panicked at all this time. Click. The door was pushed open. It was Sarah. Her gaze swept over my face, then landed on the small table nearby. She walked over and put something down on it. I paused, thinking I had become my sister's spirit guardian this time. But then my heart sank. She was in the hospital. I didn't know who it was for. Was it Mom or Dad? Or was something wrong with her? I looked at her worriedly. She ladled a small bowl of porridge from a thermos and walked toward me. "Awake? Me? Huh?" I pointed at myself in disbelief. "You can see me?" Sarah rolled her eyes. "Did the surgery break your brain?" I said, "But didn't I die?" Sarah's face fell. "Who said you died?" I said in disbelief. "But back then, Then I got to your apartment. Stomach pump, induced vomiting, the whole routine," Sarah said calmly. "But because your body was so weak before, you fell into a coma for some reason. Later, we found a matching donor and did the surgery immediately. So now my illness. Yeah, it's cured. No rejection reaction for now." Sarah sneered. "You're in good health now. Once you're discharged, you're healthy enough for Mom, Dad, and me to beat the hell out of you." Hearing this, I looked away guiltily. Then, remembering that magical experience as Elena's ghost, I tentatively said, "You won't believe it. But while I was out, I had a weird dream. I dreamt I was a ghost following Elena." Sarah pursed her lips, looking at me like I was hopeless. "You really have high aspirations." Seeing her misunderstand, I quickly explained, "It's not what you think. I followed her and watched her get tortured. It was awesome. I even saw you take her to a grave without a headstone and tell her I was dead." Sarah paused, looking surprised. "I actually did that." I was shocked. "You really bought me a grave? Aren't you cursing me to die?" Sarah said, "Didn't you want to die anyway? You were lying half dead in the ICU. Why couldn't I buy a grave in advance?" I froze, realizing something was wrong. I quickly asked, "How long was I out?" 3 months. God. I had been in a coma for 3 whole months. Guilt instantly flooded my heart again. For 3 months they had lived in fear for me. I knew my condition must have been critical. Otherwise, they wouldn't have bought a plot in advance. My heart ached slightly. This was my family, who loved me. I sat up straight and reached out to hug Sarah. "Sarah, thank you. I'll listen to you from now on." Sarah was silent for a long time, then raised her hand to hug me back. "As long as you know." "By the way, what about that grave?" "I flipped it for 500 grand. "What? No way. Was there really a sucker who paid $500,000 for an empty grave?" From that day on, I started my rehabilitation. Because I had been in bed for so long, my limbs were weak. Sarah hired a specialist to help me rehab. It turned out to be Dr. Emily, the doctor who had stood up for me and roasted Elena in the hospital back in my dream. Dr. Emily was very humorous. Every time she checked on me, she would find topics to make me laugh. But she was also incredibly meticulous in her work. With her help, I recovered quickly. Soon I could leave the ward for walks with assistants. One day, I was walking slowly in the garden with Dr. Emily when we heard crying and shouting ahead. Emily supported me as we stood at a distance to watch. I looked closely and realized it was Julian. He was sitting on the ground, hair disheveled, crying. The fragile, handsome look was gone. He was clutching a nurse's uniform, looking crazy. He was screaming, "Why is there a rejection? Why is there a rejection? Is your technology garbage? Why is my body rejecting it? I don't want to die. Where is that volunteer? Make him donate bone marrow again. I have money. I have lots of money. Save me. Save me." "Sir, please calm down. We have already contacted the volunteer. Donation is voluntary. If he isn't willing, we cannot force him." I watched Julian for a long time, unable to look away. He was having a rejection reaction. Seeing me staring, Emily asked softly, "Tired? Should we go back through Gate C?" I nodded and turned with her help. The next second, I froze. Behind me stood Elena. She was staring right at me. I thought, just my luck. I hope this woman doesn't start trouble. Emily clearly saw her too. She frowned slightly, then supported me as we walked away. As we passed Elena, I heard her whisper, "Mark, I'm sorry. I was really happy when I found out you were alive. I bought that grave back from your sister. When I die, I want to be buried in it. If there is a next life—" "Ma'am, please believe in science," Dr. Emily suddenly interrupted. "If you pin everything on the next life, doesn't that make this life a failure? Be realistic. You can't even live this life properly. What makes you think you'll be a decent human in the next one?" Elena's voice cut off instantly. Emily's tongue was so sharp I almost applauded. Seeing me look at her, she gave me a gentle smile, took my hand, and we slowly walked away. This time I didn't look back. It was a rare, sunny day. Emily held my hand, and from then on all the gloom scattered as she led me slowly into the sunlight.